The year is 2018, the day is October 26th, and the game is World Series Game 3. It might not feel like that long ago, but we're 6.5 years removed from one of the craziest games in World Series history. A game that went 18 innings and was officially over 7 hours in length. A game that also featured one of the most fantastic unsung hero performances in World Series history by Nathan Eovaldi. Playing double the length of your average MLB game is taxing. Sure, a lot of players do it for a doubleheader, but even then, teams are usually prepared for that. They can call up some extra guys and plan things out. Not quite the case for an 18-inning game. Some guys are gonna just have to take on the burden and complete those 9 extra innings. And oh, by the way, World Series Game 4 is the next day, and Game 5 is the day after that. The Boston Red Sox used 8 of their pitchers before Nathan Eovaldi came out in the 12th inning to carry the load. But before we dive into Eovaldi's heroic performance in Game 3, we have to take a trip back to where it all started. How did Nathan Eovaldi's career lead him to be given one of the most important tasks on the biggest stage? Nathan Eovaldi had 6 seasons in the big leagues before he ended up in Boston and subsequently facing the Dodgers in the World Series. Ironically, the team he was first drafted by was the Los Angeles Dodgers. They picked him in the 11th round of the 2008 MLB draft. A fairly late round pick, but he was coming out of high school and didn't end up attending college. Another big factor is that he had to get Tommy John surgery at a fairly young age while still in high school in 2007. Now, Tommy John surgery has only been on the rise over the years due to a multitude of reasons people are still trying to fully understand, and that goes for high school players too. For young athletes, the prospect of Tommy John surgery makes things a bit unclear as to what that could mean for their future. However, some recent studies have shown that players who get Tommy John surgery aren't less likely to make the big leagues, both in terms of being drafted and being developed through the minors. 2007 though might have been a little different, and no matter what, it's a little scary for any young player to get such a significant procedure done so early. After he was drafted though, Eovaldi went straight into the Dodgers rookie league as an 18-year-old. After a few years, he was able to make his big league debut on August 6, 2011, and he had a pretty great start, striking out 7 batters in just 5 innings while giving up 4 hits and 2 earned runs. You'll absolutely take that for your MLB debut. With a few more starts after that, he mostly made appearances out of the bullpen in September, ending his glimpse in the majors pitching 34.2 innings to a 3.63 ERA and a 4.35 FIP. Since he got called up well into the season in August, he still had rookie eligibility going into 2012. The 2012 season would be the beginning of a very well-traveled next 6 years for Eovaldi. He started the year in the minor leagues as the Dodgers rotation simply didn't have space for him in it. Once May rolled around, Ted Lilly suffered a shoulder injury and had to go on the IL, paving an opportunity for Eovaldi's second call-up. But for the next 2 months, he didn't pitch all that great. After 56.1 innings, he had a 4.15 ERA, a 4.11 FIP, a 147 WHIP, and a 15.8% K rate, subpar compared to his typical career strikeout rate. Despite his struggles, the Dodgers had greater issues outside of Eovaldi, primarily from the injury to D. Strange Gordon, leaving a big hole in their shortstop spot. At the time, Marlins star Hanley Ramirez was in a bit of a rut, not quite looking like his usual all-star self. By the trade deadline at the end of that July, the Marlins were in 4th place and not looking to contend, so there was an opening. An opening for the Dodgers to get a perennial MVP candidate at potentially his cheapest. Thus, Eovaldi was shipped off to Florida along with Scott McGough for Ramirez and Randy Choate. The rest of his season with the Marlins wasn't much better, but he'd stay on the team for another few years. Over those few years in Miami, things were frequently up and down. In 2013, he made huge improvements to his ERA and FIP, lowering them to 3.39 and 3.59 respectively by the end of the season. But he was only able to toss 106.1 innings due to a shoulder injury. The problems in 2014 were a little different. No setbacks, no minor league stint, no major injuries. He was locked into Miami's rotation at the start of the year, and the first half of the season was looking great. Eovaldi went got into the All-Star break with just over 119 innings, a 3.61 ERA, a 3.32 FIP, a 12-12 WHIP, and a 16.6% K rate. The problems arose because of volume. 119 2/3 innings pitch was more innings in a single season than Eovaldi has ever had in his career up to this point, and it was only July. Eovaldi's second half would be significantly worse, and overall it tainted a season that was looking like a breakout. He ended 2014 with 199 2/3 innings, still to this day the most innings he's pitched in a single season of his career, a 4.37 ERA, a 3.37 FIP, a 13.32 WHIP, and a 16.6% K rate. To be fair, that lower FIP compared to his ERA indicates he may have had unfavorable luck overall. That, along with his career-high innings, is definitely a positive to take out of that unfortunate second half. In December, just a few months after the conclusion of the 2014 season, Eovaldi was a trade candidate once again. This time, the New York Yankees were the interested team. Up until this point, Eovaldi has had glimpses of what could be an ace role in a rotation. He was still just 24 at the time, and despite the high ERA that year, his lower FIP along with proof that he can be a workhorse made him a desirable player once again. Therefore, a trade was completed, and Eovaldi, along with Garrett Jones and Domingo Germán, got shipped off to the New York Yankees in exchange for Martin Prado and David Phelps. In 2015, Eovaldi proceeded to have a completely adverse year to his last one in Miami with an ERA over 5 by June 16th. On top of that, an elbow injury in September would cut his innings down to 150, but because of a second half surge and yet again a big discrepancy between his ERA and FIP, 2016 was looking like it could finally be his year, and it was potentially his worst. Eovaldi's performance on the field in 2016 sadly didn't improve. By July 6th of that season, he was sporting a pretty bad 5.22 ERA and a 5.09 FIP. It actually led to him being put in the bullpen for a few weeks before returning to the rotation at the end of July. Unfortunately, when it rains, it pours, and things got even worse. In August, it was discovered that Eovaldi had fully torn his flexor tendon and partially torn his UCL, completely ending his season then and there. This would also sideline him for the entirety of 2017, his last year before free agency. Because of that, the Yankees would let him go in the winter before that season. Of course, a pitcher with loads of potential and limited success sounds like a perfect opportunity for the savvy Tampa Bay Rays, so they pounced on it. Well, it's time to head back to Florida. The Rays agreed to a one-year contract with Eovaldi for $2 million. He would essentially be paid to rehab with the team that year. They also agreed to a $2 million club option for the 2018 season that they'd assuredly use so he can actually pitch for the team. It's time for another change of scenery. Here we are in 2018. Eovaldi is 28 years old with 7 big league seasons, 3 different ball clubs, and not 1 but 2 Tommy John surgeries in the rear view. Now it's time for another fresh start. Right before that though, the injury bug had to come by for another visit. Loose bodies in Eovaldi's elbow sidelined him indefinitely before the season, and he didn't have his first start with the Rays until May 30th. Just a few months off of 2 years of no professional baseball. But once he came back, his stuff was as good as it had ever been. In his time with the Rays that year, he may have had a 4.26 ERA and a 4.28 FIP, but his whip was .982, his strikeout rate was 23.7%, and his swing and miss was up to 11%. Those last 3 were all career bests compared to his previous seasons. The increase in strikeouts was huge because what primarily made Eovaldi so desirable to so many teams was his fastball. In 2018, Eovaldi averaged 97.2 miles per hour with his four-seamer. Just 2 other starters in the big leagues that year averaged better than that, those being Luis Severino and Noah Syndergaard. So regardless of injuries, regardless of the 2 Tommy John surgeries, and regardless of less than favorable results, teams always saw potential there and wouldn't hesitate to line up and get him. The next team in that line was, of course, the Boston Red Sox. Tampa Bay was by no means a bad team in 2018, they even finished the season with 90 wins, but when they were looking to trade Eovaldi on July 25th, they were only 2 games above 500 with practically no chance at a division win or even a wildcard spot. So it was time to sell, and with Eovaldi's next free agency looming, he was the first to be moved. On July 25th, the Red Sox finalized a trade of 24-year-old Jalen Beeks for Nathan Eovaldi. The Red Sox team that Eovaldi joined was in the middle of a pretty phenomenal final run. They were 71-32, on pace to win over 110 games. The Sox weren't in dire need of Eovaldi so they could make a push for the playoffs. Their rotation just needed some depth. A few guys were down and out, namely Stephen Wright and Eduardo Rodriguez. Plus, Eovaldi could always be put in the bullpen if needed. With the fourth team of his major league career and an upcoming free agency, now is the time for his potential to become a reality. And it kinda did. Eovaldi would end up throwing 54 innings for the Red Sox in the regular season to an ERA of 3.33, a FIP of 2.88, a WHIP of 12.78, and a K rate of 20.8%. The WHIP may have increased and the K rate may have gone down, but the monumental difference was the home runs. He gave up 8 fewer home runs with Boston than he did with Tampa in about the same amount of innings. Maybe it was just a glimpse. Maybe he'd regress once again. But Eovaldi had finally hit that stride he had been looking for. He was born again, and what better time to do it than with a team bound for the World Series? Nathan Eovaldi would reach a whole nother level in this postseason and especially the World Series, but before that, he was in line to start Game 3 of the ALDS against the Yankees, his former team. It was also the first postseason game of his career. The series was split 1 apiece between the two 100-win rivals, so tensions were fairly high. Eovaldi starts Game 3 strong, with no runs or walks given up through his first 3 innings and only allowing 2 hits, which were just singles. The offense gave him a fair amount of run support up until this point as well, but the 4th inning is when the bloodbath began. The Red Sox started off the inning by getting the bases loaded for Mookie Betts. Betts then drew a walk to score their 4th run, bringing up Andrew Benintendi to the plate. He would then blow the entire game open with a bases clearing double, making it 7-0 just like that. But it didn't stop there, as Xander Bogaerts and Steve Pearce would reach base via singles of their own, with Pearce's scoring Benintendi, making it 8-0. After that, Brock Holt would put the final nail in the coffin, hitting a 2 RBI triple to right field that scored both Bogaerts and Pearce. Out of nowhere, Eovaldi now has a 10-run lead to work with. From then on, he rode off the success of his offense, ending his start with 7 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 5 hits, 0 walks, and 5 strikeouts. The Red Sox would then score even more runs, and Brock Holt even got a cycle in the playoffs, but Eovaldi did a great job of keeping the intensity and doing his part despite having such a monumental amount of wiggle room. With a lead like that, a lesser pitcher could easily falter and force the Red Sox to use more pitchers than they wanted to in such a big blowout. With the Red Sox winning Game 4 and moving on, Eovaldi's next appearance wouldn't be until sometime during the ALCS against the Astros. By record, the Astros were the second best team in baseball that year with 103 wins. So the Red Sox had to go through not 1, but 2 100-win teams before even getting to the World Series. Eovaldi's next start was a split series Game 3 once again, and it was a little more challenging than the last one, but he did get the job done. After starting the first with a strikeout, back-to-back singles by Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman put him in a tough spot already. After Yuli Gurriel grounded out, Marwin Gonzalez knocked a base hit, scoring Altuve and giving the Astros their first run. Josh Reddick then flew out, so despite the inning being a bit messy and requiring 26 pitches to get it done, the damage wasn't too bad. The next 3 innings were much cleaner. He got Carlos Correa, Brian McCann, and Tony Kemp out 1-2-3 in the 2nd inning. Then in the 3rd, he gave up a single and a walk, but executed pitches when he needed to and made it out of the inning unscathed. The 4th was another easy 1-2-3 inning, but his struggles in this game against the top of the Astros lineup came back to bite him in the 5th. He gave up another run after Alex Bregman hit an RBI double to score Altuve all the way around from first base. Luckily for him, he was able to close out that inning and leave Bregman stranding. His final inning in the 6th was another scoreless one, so it may not have been the most dominant performance, giving up 6 hits and 2 walks, but just 2 earned runs in 6 innings was good for a quality start. It got the job done against a stellar offense, and only giving up 1 extra base hit all night was a catalyst for that success. From now on through the rest of the postseason, Eovaldi would make his home in the bullpen. He wasn't the only starter who would make appearances from the pen, as David Price, Rick Porcello, and Chris Sale were among those who did the same thing. So because of that, Eovaldi did have 1 more appearance in this ALCS, and that was in Game 5. He wouldn't come into this game until the bottom of the 7th, as David Price pitched 6 scoreless innings and Matt Barnes came in for relief. But Barnes wasn't doing so hot, as he gave up a home run to Marwin Gonzalez and then walked Tony Kemp. So Eovaldi came into the game to relieve Matt Barnes just 2 days after a 6-inning start. And all it took was just 2 pitches, as he got Josh Reddick to fly out to end the 7th inning. But Eovaldi wasn't done there. He came right back out in the 8th inning. He gets Brian McCann to ground out and Alex Bregman to strike out, and after George Springer gets on base with a single, Altuve ends the inning with a lineout to center field. Eovaldi gave his team another scoreless inning and then some, even after throwing 92 pitches just 2 days prior and completely shaking up a routine for a starting pitcher. We're almost there, but before Eovaldi's performance in Game 3 of the World Series, he made appearances in Games 1 and 2 as well, both late game relief. In Game 1, he comes in to face Matt Kemp, Kike Hernandez, and Yasiel Puig with an 8-4 lead. He proceeds to get all 3 batters to ground out for a clean 1-2-3 inning. Game 2 was more of the same. Eovaldi came in for the 8th to hold the lead for Craig Kimbrell in the 9th. He gets Cody Bellinger out swinging, gets Justin Turner to ground out, and gets Jock Peterson to fly out to left field. That's 2 games down, 2 clean 1-inning appearances for Nathan Eovaldi, and 2 wins for the Boston Red Sox in the World Series. But nothing would prepare Eovaldi or anyone on the Red Sox or Dodgers for what would happen just 2 days later. The city is Los Angeles, and the venue is Dodger Stadium. The Boston Red Sox arrive for Game 3 to try to take a 3-0 lead in the World Series. Although Boston is threatening to go up 3-0, this World Series hasn't been a blowout. The Sox have just been the better team, like they were over all the other teams in the regular season. Going into the first game in LA, let's not forget that prior to 2022, playing against a National League team in their home stadium meant National League rules. Thus, Game 3's starters, Walker Buehler and Rick Porcello, would be in the lineup for this game, losing the DH slot and lowering both teams' offensive potential. This is obviously a very long game, so we're going to jump around some of this game's biggest moments that lead up to Eovaldi taking the mound in extras. Walker Buehler started off this game strong, pumping fastballs and forcing Red Sox hitters to spoil as many pitches as they could. Although he began by striking out Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts, those matchups were far from easy. Betts fouled off 3 pitches in total during his at-bat and worked a 3-2 count before striking out on the 8th pitch. Xander's at-bat was even longer as he fouled off 5 pitches in a row and made Buehler throw 10 in total to finally strike him out. Mitch Moreland would continue a similar theme, spoiling 3 pitches and forcing Buehler into a 3-2 count before flying out to left field on the 8th pitch. It was a 1-2-3 inning with 2 Ks for Buehler, but it took 26 pitches to get it done. It would eventually take until the top of the 3rd for either team to get a hit when Jackie Bradley Jr. reached base with an infield single. Almost immediately after that though, the Dodgers caught JBJ stealing early, removing that base running threat not even a minute later. Christian Vasquez would also get a single 2 batters later, but it didn't lead to anything by the end of the inning. Now to the bottom of the 3rd. Rick Porcello was cruising, only letting 1 guy reach base through 2 2/3. But maybe he got too comfortable because against Jock Peterson, he served up a middle changeup that got crushed to right field for LA's first hit and run of the game. After that, both pitchers continued to effortlessly cut down batters, but the big difference between Buehler and Porcello, other than the home run given up, is that Buehler was in for the long haul, and Porcello was not. After getting 2 outs in the 5th, Cora was quick to take Porcello out at just 61 pitches. Other than the home run, he had been doing great and hadn't been used at all in either of the first 2 World Series games. That's 9 days since he last pitched, so he had plenty of rest going into this one. Cora, though, likely saw a few obstacles. Obviously, Peterson was a huge threat. He mashes righties, there was a runner on base, and he had that home run off Porcello earlier in the game. It was also the 3rd time through the order, where many starters often perform worse. Not to mention, Porcello was also queued up to hit in the top of the 6th, so Eduardo Rodriguez was able to come in, give them the lefty-lefty matchup against Peterson, complete the inning, and get pinch hit for right after. It's those kinds of game-within-the-game moves that managers have to deliberate on in such a big game, and especially when there wasn't a universal DH. Would Cora had made that move knowing his guys would need to get 38 more outs in this game? Maybe not, but who knew that was going to happen? In the bottom of the 6th, known Los Angeles Dodger Manny Machado would hit a ball to deep left field just below and off the bottom of the wall. Machado wasn't running, clearly thinking this ball was going out, so he only ended up with a long single. Bellinger would proceed to immediately pop out to end that inning, so who knows what would have happened if Machado had been in scoring position, but the inning is over nonetheless. Meanwhile, Buehler gave the Dodgers 2 more perfect innings, striking out Mookie Betts, Mitch Moreland, and JD Martinez in the process. After 7 scoreless innings, Buehler had been dominant, and the Dodgers pen would just need to get 6 more outs to put them right back into this series. It wouldn't take long for the Dodgers' plan to fall apart though. Kenley Jansen comes in as LA's first pitcher after Buehler, and as their regular closer for years up until that point, the plan was for him to pitch 2 innings and close this game out. However, with 2 outs in the 8th, Jackie Bradley Jr. rocks a fastball to right field for a game-tying home run. Jansen did manage to keep Boston at bay for the rest of that inning and the 9th inning, so it was up to the Dodgers hitters to try to keep this thing from going to extras. We know what's going to happen here, but the bottom of the 9th inning was eventful nonetheless. David Price now comes in, and he's Boston's 6th pitcher of the night to LA's 2. Bellinger leads off the inning with a single to get things going, but during Yasmani Grandal's at-bat, he decides to match Jackie Bradley Jr.'s steal attempt from earlier in the game, as in, he gets caught trying to steal before Price's windup. After Bellinger is picked off, Price then walks Grandal, then gets removed from the game and replaced with Craig Kimbrell, who then walks a batter of his own. Now the Dodgers might just have something going, but Brian Dozier quickly pops up behind the plate for the final out of the inning, sending this game into extras. Now it's time for the main event. After more scoreless innings by Craig Kimbrell, Pedro Baez, Heath Hembree, Ryan Madson, and Scott Alexander, we arrive in the bottom of the 12th inning. Up until this point, Boston has used 8 pitchers in total out of the 11 pitchers they have on their World Series roster. Their 3 remaining pitchers are Chris Sale, Drew Pomeranz, and Nathan Eovaldi. Although David Price started Game 2 and then came in for relief in this game, Sale was still very likely off the table as he started Game 1 just 3 days prior. That leaves Pomeranz, who hadn't even pitched in a game since September, and Eovaldi, who pitched from the bullpen in Games 1 and 2. So with Eovaldi being a regular starter and pitching quite well so far this postseason, he was coming in for the long haul. Regardless of what the outcome will be, Eovaldi is probably on the mound until this game is over. The 12th inning was clean. He first got Kike Hernandez to ground a ball to Christian Vasquez, who, by the way, is an everyday catcher playing first base for the first time. He fields the ball and flips it to Eovaldi for the out. Chuck Peterson came up next and flew out to Jackie Bradley Jr. in center field for out number 2. For the third batter, Justin Turner falls behind 0-2 but works the count to make it full. On the 3-2 pitch, Eovaldi throws a fastball 101 miles per hour to strike out Turner. He may not be a bullpen guy, but he's coming out hot like he is one. Moving on, the 13th inning was absolute chaos. Brock Holt walks to lead off the inning. Then, during Eduardo Nunez's at-bat, he attempts to steal second. Dodgers pitcher Scott Alexander almost spikes the ball to home plate, and Nunez gets tackled by Austin Barnes as he tries to retrieve the ball. There's no interference or anything, and Holt is safe at second. After a little delay, so Nunez could recollect himself, he swung at the very next pitch, just tapping the ball toward Alexander and sprinted to first. Nunez then headfirst slides to the base as the ball then gets thrown over Kike's head, leading to Brock Holt rushing home. Nunez also got hurt again from sliding and delayed the game again. A wild sequence of events, but more importantly, someone finally scored and took the lead again in the 13th inning. So following that ridiculous top of the 13th, Eovaldi had a chance to close this one out. But the absurdity of this inning would continue with the very first batter, Max Muncy. Muncy draws a walk on a check swing call that had the entire Boston dugout as energetic as they were 13 innings ago. The check swing is close, not in terms of whether the bat crosses the plate, but whether his wrist broke the plane or not. So my takeaway is that check swings are funny, and the problem isn't whether I think this is a swing or not, it's that I could totally see another umpire calling it a swing. Judgment calls in a nutshell. With 1 out in the inning and Muncy on first, Eovaldi gets Cody Bellinger to pop up in foul territory. Nunez then runs all the way from the middle of the infield to catch this ball and crashes into the stands. He has now fallen and gotten hurt like 3 times in the last half hour or so. Muncy would then move into scoring position because of Nunez falling into the stands with the ball. Yasiel Puig is the next man up to try and save this game for LA. Eovaldi comes out throwing fastball after fastball to Puig as he lines a grounder up the middle. Ian Kinsler proceeds to field this ball, loses his footing a little, and throws it away, wide of first base. Muncy then goes all the way around to score and tie this game. So that controversial check swing meant everything, and I've honestly never seen a sequence of events so out of a pitcher's hands. A close check swing call that could have gone either way, a great play but also a fall into the stands that moved Muncy to second, and an errant throw on a grounder up the middle that Kinsler could have even held onto to prevent the bad throw. Eovaldi did pretty much everything he was supposed to, but the 13th inning is clearly cursed for both sides and the game must go on. After one pitch to Austin Barnes, he flies out to right field and Game 3 moves to the 14th inning. To start the top of the 14th, Nathan Eovaldi gets to step into the box and hit. He gets a swing off, fouling away a pitch, but eventually goes down looking at a fastball down the middle. Over to the bottom of the 14th, David Freese, World Series legend, comes in to pinch hit for the pitcher Dylan Floro. On the second pitch of the at-bat, he scorches a ball back up the middle, which is fielded by Eovaldi and thrown to first to complete the out. It could have been pretty bad if he didn't make that play because Kike Hernandez rocketed a ball of his own for a base hit right up the middle after, but that base hit led to nothing. Well, nothing but a 15th inning as Jock Peterson would pop out in the infield and Justin Turner would fly out softly to right field, closing the books on the 14th. Boston would then threaten to put runs on the board in the top of the 15th as Kenta Maeda would get himself into a jam, but a great play, a clutch strikeout, and a little help from the umpire got him safely out of that jam. Now it's the bottom of the 15th, and Eovaldi is still out there going to work. Muncy is leading off this inning, and he proceeds to lay off some great pitches from Eovaldi to work a 3-1 count. He even tries to lay off this 3-1 cutter, but Eovaldi just paints the corner and gets the strike call. Muncy continues to battle though, fouling off fastball after fastball after fastball, all 98 and 99 miles an hour. At this point, Eovaldi wants to switch things up, so he delivers a curveball that just catches way too much plate, and Muncy sits on it, sending it to deep right field. He instantly drops his bat on the way to first, and it's just barely foul. This ball was mere feet away from being off the pole and ending this one in the 15th inning. But it isn't, and Muncy has to step back in the box. Eovaldi ends up winning this matchup, getting Muncy to chase a cutter outside the zone on the 10th pitch of the at-bat. An incredible battle, and a result that keeps this game going deeper into the night. So after that Boston-wide heart attack, he gets Machado to pop out and strikes out Bellinger to give us at least a 16th inning. This inning is also when Eovaldi would take his second at-bat. Now, of course he strikes out, but him coming up to hit still tells the world that he's not going anywhere and he'll be back out in the bottom of the inning. Eovaldi gets another 1-2-3 inning in the 16th, although with a little bit of a scary play by Nunez. He has to rush over and catch a pop fly on the mound where everyone's standing there wondering who's gonna get it, and now he's fallen down for the 4th time tonight. This is kind of an Eduardo Nunez video at this point, and he's giving it his all out there in extras. Let's move on to the 17th as midnight strikes in Los Angeles, and in Boston, 3 in the morning. The Red Sox fail to get anyone further than first base, so Eovaldi is coming out for his 6th inning. Hernandez is first up and pops out behind the mound after just 3 pitches. Now it has gotten to the point where Clayton Kershaw has come into this game to pinch hit for Kenta Maeda because there's nobody left on the bench, and rather than let Maeda hit and then take him out, they decided they might as well let Kershaw hit. And no, Kershaw's not here to pitch, he's just here for the AB. He almost gets a hit to drop in the outfield, but he lined it directly to Mookie Betts in right for the second out. Eovaldi's still got gas in the tank against Justin Turner as he's pumping up to 99 miles per hour and gets him out swinging for the second time. That's 6 innings down for Eovaldi with 2 hits given up, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. The top of the 18th is more nothing for Boston. Sandy Leon drew a walk, but Xander Bogaerts ground into a double play, swiftly ending that opportunity. Now if the 18th inning were to conclude, virtually 2 full baseball games would be played in one. Max Muncy leads off against Nathan Eovaldi for the 3rd time this game and continues the intensity from their last matchup. On the 7th pitch of the at-bat and Eovaldi's 97th pitch of the game, Muncy launches a ball to deep left field for a walk-off home run. This game is finally over in the 18th inning and Eovaldi takes the loss. The craziest part about this home run is that Eovaldi hadn't given up one all postseason. Not only that, he hadn't given up a home run in 2 months. The last homer that Eovaldi gave up in 2018 was on August 31st. For the rest of the regular season and the playoffs, it took 52 1/3 innings for Eovaldi to give up another one. He leaves the mound looking disappointed, blowing this game for his team, but also pitching the game of his life. Nathan Eovaldi's performance in Game 3 of the 2018 World Series is one that I've never forgotten. Despite every struggle and despite every injury, that potential I was talking about, it all went into this Game 3 performance. In that postseason, Eovaldi went from a starter to a bullpen guy and then threw more pitches and innings out of the pen than the guy who started Game 3 for the Red Sox. He put it all out there that night. Yeah, the Red Sox lost Game 3, and maybe not much would have changed if Eovaldi just given up the game in the 12th, but he put on the performance of a lifetime. Boston's bullpen was already pretty spent going into extras, while Walker Buehler gave the Dodgers a lot to work with. Eovaldi carried the entire pitching staff that night and effectively forced the Dodgers to use 5 relievers the entire time he was pitching. Going into the 12th inning, Boston had used 8 different pitchers while Los Angeles had only used 4. By the end of the night, both teams used 9 pitchers in total, kind of putting them on equal footing for Game 4. While Game 3 of the World Series was the highlight, the entire postseason was pretty much the Nathan Eovaldi national tour. He traveled back to New York to take down his former team, faced off against the Astros where he grew up in the Houston area, and cut down the entire lineup of the team that drafted him and subsequently traded him away. Boston would of course end up going on to win Games 4 and 5 to win it all. Winning a World Series is great for the resume, but the performance had a bigger impact on Eovaldi's future. In the 2018 offseason, he would sign a 4-year, $68 million contract to remain a Boston Red Sox. I'm not sure Eovaldi would have upped his yearly salary by $15 million if it weren't for those elite playoff performances. The injury problems never really stopped for Eovaldi after 2018, but when healthy, he was able to prove his worth in the following years. He got his first All-Star Game appearance, his first Cy Young placement in the top 5, and hell, even an MVP vote thrown in there. Thanks for watching.